So we're digging through the interwebs. Not using my mic. I apologize for that. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good.
Anyone know where I can find good help?
It's always how he starts the episode. I'm starting to take this personally. So we're digging through the internet, business forums, LinkedIn. Nah, I'm lying. I didn't go on LinkedIn. I went on places like Reddit, different places, X, just to find out what businesses owners are actually talking about. So this is not LinkedIn stuff. It's not cleaned up. This is not anybody trying to impress anybody. This is real things that business owners in this country are talking about, what they're feeling in their businesses. And I just wanted to, run through some, let's call them confessions. Um, just, and I want to, get your take on these things. So each one is built, it's a built-in thing. So it's statements
Yeah.
for each thing, right? So you with me? Cool. Let me give you the first one. I've got the staff that have been with me 4 or 5 years, and I still don't trust them to handle things without me checking everything. It's exhausting. If I don't follow up on something, it just doesn't get done. I don't even know if it's them or me at this point. Half my day is literally chasing people for things they already know they're supposed to do. This
It's you.
is different businesses. It's not the same person,
Different business.
different businesses.
Yeah. So, I mean, my first take is it's the business owner, not it's the business owner's fault, but you have to look. You got to look at yourself first.
Yep.
Why is that happening? Why is it continually happening? And what are you doing to change it? So, how do you change it? Create the right behaviors, the expected behaviors, and then hold people accountable to those behaviors. If they can't behave in the way that they need to behave, then you need to move them on and replace them.
Mm.
And it's pretty tough, but other than that, what you're going to do is you're going to spend the rest of your business life babysitting people and hoping they're going to do stuff. And you have to hold people accountable, and you have to get them to hold themselves to account.
Mm.
So yeah, if they know that they're meant to do it, and you are clear that they know that they're meant to do it, then they need to get it done. And if they can't get it done, and you keep having to follow up with them, then you need to make a change.
Mm.
Otherwise, you are going to continue getting unbelievably frustrated. And it's a thing I see with so many business owners is that whole piece of if I don't follow up on them, and if I'm not making sure they do it, and if I'm not doing this, and if I'm not involved, well, you're gonna stay stuck in your business for the rest of your life. So it's about creating the behaviors that are required, holding people to those behaviors, getting them to buy in and agree to those behaviors. Two, creating very clear processes that people need to follow, and you hold them to those processes. Three, understanding what do they need, what training do they need, what help do they need, what resources do they need in order for them to be able to do what's needed to be done. Um, Identifying whether they can actually do what's needed to be done.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times I think because I can do it doesn't mean you can do it.
For sure.
Because you can do it doesn't mean I can do it. And we have this expectation that it's obvious and they have the job, they should be able to do it. And then, yeah, create and drive the accountability, create very clear processes, drive accountability to a process, drive accountability to behaviors, and then hold them accountable and be very clear and create agreement on what the consequences are going to be if you have to keep operating like that.
Okay, so I'm a business owner. I'm listening to this. Cool, Barry. Yes, that sounds good. How do I create accountability? This is something that I've been dealing with. So, like, the first confession is these are people that have been in my business for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, so
I've,
you've been
I've had them for a long time.
yeah, great. So nice people.
Yeah,
Um, I I I mean it's very generalized. So
for sure.
I'd have to dig a little bit deeper into the people, but I mean you can take a couple of scenarios. So these are people that I've had working for me for a long time, for 4 or 5 years. Okay, maybe some of them are family members or very close friends and that sort of stuff. So that creates a whole lot of ambiguity within little voices around what happens if I do discipline them, if I do hold them accountable and they leave, then I'm going to get repercussions. Well, you need to sort that sort of stuff out
Mhm.
because your business is your business. and a lot of times those things get in the way. Yeah, well, if you've had them for 4 or 5 years and they're continually not behaving in the way you want them to behave, well, either you better accept that that's what you're going to keep putting up with, or you have to change it. You have to make the conscious changes within your team. You have to sit down and say, we can't keep going like this. You know, I'm not prepared to continue going like this. I'm not prepared to continue moving along these lines. I'm not prepared to sit in a meeting and everyone says yes, and a week later they haven't done it, and 2 weeks later they still haven't done it. How do I know that? Because I've been there many times. That's not it's so common with business owners. And then you're going to, there's a wonderful saying I learned from Robert Kiyosaki: you can be nice or you can be kind. And the problem is we're too nice. Okay, Sully, will you do it again next? Yes, I'll do it. Then Sully doesn't do it. The reality is every time Sully doesn't do it and he's promised to do it, he's just creating more stress, effort, pressure on me because I have to think about it. Well, the reality is at some stage I mean, simple. I got to grow a pair, sit down with Sully and say, dude, I really like you. But the reality is you're not performing in your job. So you're letting me down, you're letting everyone else down. And now what are you going to do to change it?
Yeah.
And then is that fair? Are you delivering on? And right up front, you've got to be very clear, because a lot of times business owners, managers think they are clear, but the person that they're dealing with is not clear. So whether they should be clear or shouldn't be clear, or you've told them 73 million times, it's irrelevant. Sit down with them, create absolute clarity around the agreement, and create absolute clarity around what are the consequences. And should this not be met, what are those consequences? Then you're not managing from a position of emotion. You're just managing from a position of agreement. That's what we've agreed. It's not acceptable. Because the reality is if you keep allowing one person to do that, someone else will do it, the next person do it, and then you have no control over your space. You have no control over performance. Nice people, maybe a lot of nice people being ineffective and unproductive, and as the business owner, you're the one that's taking the hiding.
Should this agreement be written down?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you and I sit down, we talk about something. You heard what you heard. I heard what I heard. I know what you heard because I said what I said. You know what you heard because you heard it. And we create confusion.
Yeah.
So you sit down and you write it down and you say, are we clear on this? Do you need anything else? And you formalize it. You formalize it. You formalize the agreement, not so you become bureaucratic. So it's a formal agreement. So when you sit down, you are not the authority. The piece of paper is the authority. It's an agreement by the two of us. It's not Barry said because he's the business owner.
Yeah.
No, it's the agreement between the two of us. Are we in agreement? Yes, we are. Are you sure? What are the consequences? Have we agreed? Yes, we did. Great. Write down the agreed consequences. Write down the agreed behaviors. Write down how you're going to measure it and manage it. Then there's no ambiguity. And then someone can get up and, oh, you're unfair and you this. Whoa, stop. I'm not. But you take it however you want emotionally. But the reality is that's the agreement.
So that first line that I read was like, literally, I don't trust my team. Can you get that back?
Well, where does trust come from? Trust comes from one thing and one thing only.
What's that?
It only comes from agreement.
Okay.
So if you go back to what I was talking about, you don't trust your team because they keep breaking agreements.
Got you.
So pull it all the way back, redefine the agreements, create clarity on the agreements, and hold them to the agreement. And if they break the agreement, well, eventually, if they continue breaking it over X 2-3 times, well, then let them go. Give them the opportunity to rebuild trust.
Okay.
But trust comes from one thing and one thing only. It doesn't come because you're a nice person. It doesn't come because you're good at your job. It doesn't come because you're very clever. It doesn't come because you're good looking, smart, fit. It doesn't come because you and I are best friends. It doesn't come from any of those things. It comes from the fact that you honor your agreements. When you honor your agreements, you build trust. When you break your agreements, you break trust. And that is as simple, not easy, but that is as simple as it is. So as a business owner, Are you clear on your agreements? And is your team clear on the agreements that they have with you and with everybody else in the team?
Mm.
And then are you driving to that level of accountability to ensure that agreements are upheld?
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who stumbled upon this episode, you might be wondering, who are these crazy people yelling into a mic? My name is Sunny, and I am the host of the Uncovering Greatness podcast. The Uncovering Greatness podcast was created and is created for business owners. People who have been in business for more than 5 years and know what it is to run a business, the struggles of it, running a team, all the pressures that come with it. And today I'm joined by the one and only Mr. Barry Mitchell. Barry is the lead trainer and founder of Uncovering Greatness. And what he helps you do is he helps you build better, bigger, stronger businesses if you apply what he teaches. How you doing?
Always good.
Always good, he says.
Sometimes gooder than others.
Sometimes gooder.
I'm gooder at today anyway.
I'm gooderist.
I'm good, gooder, and gooderist anyway.
So
Sometimes you can just talk shit.
yeah. Yeah. Let me move into the second one. Second segment. I think this is an interesting one. It's very different to the first one, but it's probably the one that hits home the most for most business owners. So, revenue looks fine on paper, but I'm not feeling it in the business. Cash just disappears.
Mhm.
Money comes in and goes straight out. Salaries, suppliers, everything. There's never a point where I feel ahead. We're busy all the time, but it doesn't feel like we're actually getting anywhere. The money one
Yeah.
for a business owner. What's your take on the money one for business owners right now?
Well, I mean, what came up in my mind as soon as you were reading that first up is that way too many business owners don't understand the financials. They're not running their business based on the numbers. They're running their business based on their bank account.
Oh, so what comes in?
What
What's
comes in,
there?
what comes in, what
Goes
goes out, and how little's left. Why did you find that funny?
Because you didn't say what's left, you said what little's left. That's
Well, when you say that, that's what I read, and that's the key problem is lots of business owners are managing their finances on their bank account.
Mm.
Many of them do not have financials every month. They're not running their business based on financials. If you're not getting a set of financials at the end of every month to review where your business is at, you can't run a business. Two, if you're not running your business based on a budgeted forecast for the year, you can't run your business.
Mm.
And all too often, way too many businesses are in the dark when it comes to financials. They're not sitting down going, where are we financially? What is our income? What are our expenses? What are our assets? What are our liabilities? Are we on track for our expenses? Where's money? Where are we hemorrhaging money? Where are we spending on stuff that we shouldn't be spending? Where are we making stupid financial decisions because, I don't know, because suddenly money came in and we want stuff.
Mm.
Where's our income? Is our income tracking our sales target? Do you have a sales plan? Do you have an income target that's driven from your sales plan? Where's that money going to come from? How are you going to get that? What activities do you need to drive income in? And then where are you extracting profit? Many business owners talk profit but don't focus on profit. They're not focused on where are you extracting profit in your business?
Yeah.
You know, in my business, you're a profit center. Where are you extracting profit?
Mm.
You're in we talked about it yesterday. You know, if your cost per lead is running at, let's just say your cost per lead is running at 40 rand a lead.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So it's 40 rand a lead. So this year we'll budget. We want 1,000 leads, for example. We're on 1,000 leads. So we are budgeting that your marketing spend for lead generation in a particular area is going to be 40,000 rand.
Yep.
Okay. So we want 1,000 leads over the year. for example,
Mhm.
and it's 40,000 Rand, and we're going to run it 3,500 Rand a month for ease of math.
Cool.
Great. Now, how do you extract profit? Well, you come and say, Barry, I think I can maintain the 1,000 leads at the quality of the leads that we need, but I can reduce it to, over a period of time, I'm going to be able to reduce it by from 40 to 30.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I can reduce it from 40 to 30. I'll reduce it by 10 Rand a lead by doing A, B, and C. Excellent. Well, you do that, we get our 1,000 leads. Well, guess what? We have straight direct to profit. We found an extra 10 Rand versus budget.
Yes.
Okay. So now that's 10,000 Rand.
Mhm.
So
Good.
does
Yeah,
that make
yeah.
sense? But way too many business owners and businesses are not looking at their business like that. Where is it? What is the cost? How do you drive profit? So, if you're in sales, how do you drive profit? You drive income, and you increase your level of income. You manage your GP. You make sure that your gross profit is at a specific level or higher. You limit discounts. So you become profit focused.
Okay.
But you have to have the numbers in order to understand where the profit is. Does that make
Yep.
sense?
Yeah, yeah. So before I ask my next question, I just have to say this. I actually think I've started to, because I'm putting myself more out there to understand the business and how the business works and stuff like that. You are one of the most fascinating business minds I've seen and that I see, just from a perspective of simplicity of how you explain something, right? Around profit, around gross profit, around all those things. I was listening to a video the other day. I'm not going to mention the person, but he was talking about like the 5 numbers you should know in your business.
Yeah.
Goodness me, I've never seen those. C caps, fee paps. I was like, what the flip is this abbreviation? This doesn't even make sense. Like, why are you trying to sound so smart? So my question, so one, I think that's amazing. And anybody who has engaged with you or who wants to engage with you, obviously there's a fee for that second part, but I think you should, because the way that I think Barry understands a business and the way businesses operate it's rare. I don't think many people have that.
I think you have to simplify it, Suli. People are getting so complicated because it's like a badge of honor to be complicated because you sound so smart
100%.
and everyone thinks you are so clever and so smart.
Genius.
Well, that's great. You can be so smart and broke.
Yeah.
Just simplify it.
Yeah.
And the more you can simplify it, the more you understand it, the more your team understands it, the more you can duplicate it, the more you can teach it, the better you can teach it. But when it's, I mean, have you ever been to an event where you sit down and you listen to someone speaking and you know that they are so smart because you can't understand what they're talking about?
Yes.
And they use highfalutin words and they use this, and it's like, wow, this guy's got to be smart, but I have no cooking clue what they're talking about.
You know how big that is in my industry, in the marketing space?
Oh, God. But it goes back to the famous old saying of let's baffle people with bullshit.
And you leave there going, man, no, I have no idea what happened, but that guy was smart.
I have a simple rule in life. If I cannot understand it and you cannot help me understand it, I will not get involved with you.
Yeah, I don't want to be anywhere near that. It's just confusing.
And so, yeah, when you're looking at, and that's the problem. If we go back to this question or this revenue, not enough revenue, not enough money. But it's, if you go back to that, you got to simplify it because people make numbers so complex.
Yeah.
And you start off, and it's the one of the key things I love about Robert Kiyosaki's teaching. He has simplified it. Income, expenses, assets, liabilities, cash flow.
Done.
When you understand those things, you ask the question, where is my income coming from? How much income do I need? Okay. When you're what are my expenses?
Yeah.
How do I manage my expenses? What expenses do I need? What expenses don't I need? A very powerful thing I learned from Kim Kiyosaki is every expense you generate must generate an income, or it must contribute to generating an income. So when you're so income, expenses, liabilities take money out of your pocket? Where are you creating debt? That debt creates an expense. How long are you going to sit on that debt for? Do you need that debt? What is that debt generating? Is that debt, or are those liabilities going to generate assets? If they're not going to generate assets, don't have them. And is that asset going to create cash flow? And then what's your cash flow? The number one reason businesses struggle is lack of cash flow. Not ideas, not passion, not drive, lack of cash flow, because they're not managing cash flow, because they're not managing all their numbers in general. When you don't understand income, expenses, assets, and liabilities, and you don't understand the flow of money, how the heck are you going to manage cash flow? Where's your money coming from? Where's it going out? What do you have to pay out? What do you have to bring in? Are you clear that in 2 months' time, 3 months' time, you're going to be in a cash flow crunch? What are you going to do now in order to make sure you bring enough money in through sales so you can ride through that cash flow term? Many people arrive there and go, "Oh, we're tight on money."
How do we get you?
Why? Well, they got there because they're not managing the numbers in their business. And then what happens is, because numbers appear to be so complicated and so complex, people get all these little voices that it's much easier just to stay away from them. I'm not a numbers guy. I don't do that sort of stuff. I have other things to do. I'm busy, da 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 da. And you have a problem.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, okay, so first thing, it was a question, but I think you kind of answered it. So would you say, for a business owner right now watching this, those are the numbers they need to go look at? Income, assets, liabilities, cash flow.
yeah. I mean, first up, before anything, income and expenses.
Okay.
Where's your money coming from? How much money do you need to generate? Not, I want millions. That's not a financial plan. But that's the problem. A lot of times people start business and they throw these numbers around and they have no idea how they're going to get there. No idea how they're going to get there. No, you have to sit down and you have to project, how am I going to make that money? What do I need to sell? What do I have to sell? Who's going to sell it? And go from there. Then you got to work out what's your gross profit. Okay. So gross profit less, so it's income less cost of sales.
Gotcha.
And that gives you your gross profit. Then you got your overheads.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got to determine, what are my overheads? What am I rent? What am I paying for? What are my fixed overheads, my variable overheads, all that sort of stuff. And after all that, that's going to give you some form of net profit. But if you don't understand that, so you got to understand, how much money do I need to bring in? Not how much money do I want to bring in. How much money do I need? What are my expenses? How much money do I need to bring in? One, to break even. Two, how much profit would I like to make? Then extrapolate that back. How much profit am I going to make? Now, many of you will be sitting there going, we know this stuff. I get it. You do, but you're not applying it. You're not doing it. I run a 5-day program with, as you know, the Ultimate Greatness Experience that we do at Uncovering Greatness. And the one thing I drive for 5 days with business owners and senior managers is numbers.
Hard.
90% of and we have some very high-powered people coming into those rooms. Very high-end managers, high-end business owners, senior people. 80 to 90% of the time, most people in the room do not understand the core numbers that drive their business. The core levers, the core levers that drive your business. When you shift this and when you change that, what does it change? How do you change this? And what we see is, we see so much emotion when it comes to numbers, because the old adage, and you've heard this, numbers tell a story. Yes, but most people don't want to read the story. One, because they're not prepared to learn how to read the story. Two, they get confused. And three, a lot of times they're so scared of the nightmare that it's going to tell them that they don't look at it. Easier just to hide away.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about, like, even we have people who've been running their businesses 10, 20 years. They've been around for a long time. And the first reflection that they have with those numbers is at UGE.
Proper reflection,
looking at
numbers.
It, like, we are face to face.
100%.
And you see that angst for 2 days that sits with them because you've exposed it. Because, like you said, you know this, you've been running a business, but you do not read the story.
Well, you think you know it.
You have an idea of it.
But you only know it when you start applying it. When you start really sitting down and asking the honest questions. How much money is coming in? Where's it coming in from? You get out of the fantasy fairy tale bullshit that many people spend a lot of time in, and you sit down and you go, where's my money coming in from?
Yeah.
How's it coming in? What are the risks? Where may it not come? What happens if it doesn't come in? What are my contingency plans? How are we going to build this? I mean, yesterday, what did I do? I sat down with you and Nicole and we went through our financials for this year, our budget.
Yep.
Our new financial year started in March. We're into the first month. This is our budget. This is where we're sitting. Where's it coming from? And I said to you, Sully, if we don't drive this number, what's going to happen?
Thanks.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it's when you're driving your team, when you're driving your business, they've got to understand that if they don't bring in that number, this is where it affects.
Whole thing goes.
And
that was actually, I walked out of that going, holy shit. If you showed me that 3 years ago, I'd have been like, why are you showing me this? Like,
Yeah.
What are you trying to do? But when I saw it, I went, oh man, the understanding of if this doesn't get driven, the end result, for example, falls away. You can project it as much as you want, but if we're not driving X first and foremost, we do not get to where we need to get to.
100%. So when you sit down, you drive your financials, income comes in first. Where are we going to sell? What money are we going to bring in this year? Great. Then you go and say, what's the cost of sales for bringing in those sales? Great. What is that left in gross profit? And what are our overheads? Now, what overheads do we have? And what overheads are we going to have to increase or include or do whatever? What expenses are we going to have to bring in order to allow us to hit that number? Great. So now you budget for that. Budget salaries, people, vehicles, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Great. Now you have to perform at the top end. You have to bring in the sales, and you have to bring in the sales at the gross profit percentage. And then you have to manage your expenses so that at the bottom, you make the profit.
Yeah.
That's where people hide away. That's where sales teams hide away, salespeople hide away, business owners hide away, sales managers hide away. Oh, the market's down, so I can't make sales. I don't give a shit if the market's down. You've got to get out and you've got to find sales, because when the market's down, you're going to have to do a lot more work to find the sales.
Yeah.
Because if you don't find the sales, you're not going to make a profit at the end of the year and you're going to be in debt. And if you continually do that, your business is going to shut down. If you continually do that, you're going to have to let people go. If you're going to continue to do that, if your sales team's not bringing in the stuff, well, then you need to let them go. And that's the way it works. The opposite end is if you drive what's needed to be driven and you do what's needed to be done to hit those results, well, then you make a profit. Then everybody wins. People get bonuses and commissions. And as a business owner, your year is worthwhile. Sure, you work damn hard, but it's worthwhile because you have something more to show for it.
Yeah.
And so numbers are critical. And in my experience, way too many business owners and surprising. People think it's only just startup business owners. Not at all. I have worked with thousands of business owners over the last 20 years. And amazingly, I mean, some of them have businesses that are generating tens of millions of rand. And when we sit and analyze their numbers, yes, they have an idea of their numbers, but it's amazing how many of them do not get regular financials, do not have every single month at the end of the month, by the 7th of the month, ensure that their financials are in, and they sit down and they analyze their financials. Do not operate by a clear budget. Yeah, they have a budget, but they don't sit down and hold their team members accountable to that budget.
How important is it, especially for like a sales team, to know what the not the operating cost, but how much a business needs to hit to keep you on board? Is it, or would you say that it's not just the sales team that needs to know that, it's something that everybody across the team needs to know or have?
Well, I think everyone in the team needs to know where they contribute, how they contribute, and how important their role is to achieve the overall result that's required.
Yeah.
If you're in production, you're running a production business. Well, the people on the production line need to understand that if you stuff up production, this is the cost. If you run it at this percentage of breakages, well, this is what it's going to cost us. We're not going to make a profit. And we continue to do that, we're going to shut down. On the other side, That's how you incentivize people, because you have to teach them. Don't tell them, you teach them that this is what happens. And then you say to them, if you can reduce your can you reduce your breakages? Okay, how can you reduce your breakages? For example, data, excellent. So for every time we reduce our breakages down to this level, it'll save us, I don't know, let's say 10,000 Rand. I'll just pull it up, 10,000
Yeah.
Rand. Great. Well, if you can keep your breakage level at this level and we get a 10,000 Rand saving, I'm prepared to give you 30% of that saving. So now you're driving, now you're driving profitability, and you are now connecting different people to where they sit.
You created ownership as well, right?
100%.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same in sales. Yes, sales have a direct responsibility to drive revenue. That's why Blair Singer is saying and sales equals income, income equals life.
Yeah.
The better you sell, the better you earn, the better you earn, the better you live. The worse you sell, the worse you earn, the worse you live. So it's very simple. Salespeople in any business, your responsibility is bringing income. If you're not bringing in income, well, you shouldn't be in that business. That's your job. Okay, your job is not to pull a salary and hope that one day I'm going to close some deals. Okay, that's not your job. Your job is to sell, and to sell is to earn. That's what it is.
Yep.
And if you can't earn, if you're not closing deals, well, it's up to you to improve your game. Okay, it's like putting a striker in a soccer team who can't score friggin' goals.
No, you did.
Well, how long in the Premier League, how long are they going to keep a striker that doesn't score goals?
That guy gets sold.
Okay, great. So guess what? In business, if you're a salesperson, you're the striker. Your job is to score goals. And if you're not scoring goals, you should be put on the bench, and then you should be let go. And now that sounds harsh, but that's your job. And way too many salespeople are drawing salaries and not scoring goals. And then they move to get a higher salary, and they still don't score goals.
Yeah.
Okay, great salespeople score goals. Okay, great salespeople close deals. Why? Because they spend a lot of their life learning how to sell, investing in understanding sales, going out there doing what great salespeople do. In A Salesman's Journey, my second book, I make that statement. Sales is the highest earning profession on the planet, largely undertaken by people who are broke.
Yep.
And it's because of that. And that, as a business owner, when you understand your numbers and you sit with your salespeople, you have to drive those numbers and make it known that I cannot keep carrying you. One, as a salesperson, your first obligation is to cover your cost to company. How much does it cost the company to have you in the company? Maybe you get a cell phone, you get a salary, you have a desk, you use coffee, tea, toilet paper, everything else. It costs you. You get a vehicle, you get petrol, you get a cell phone allowance, all that stuff. That's what it costs the business to have you there. At a bare minimum, you need to be making enough gross profit to cover that cost. Bare minimum. Okay, to justify that business at a bare minimum, keeping you in there. Then your responsibility is to generate enough gross profit to cover all the other expenses in the business. That is our job in sales. If you do not want that responsibility and are not prepared to be accountable for that, get out of sales. It sounds tough, but that's the fact. And as a business owner, that is our job. That is what, as a business owner, if I don't do a lot of work with startups, but if you're a startup, you are the sales rep in your business.
Yeah.
You better get out and be selling.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to drive income. As we grow our businesses, our responsibility is to ensure that first up, our sales team are driving income. If they're not, you're wasting your money. Okay. And there's a whole lot to that. Training, teaching, clarity, processes. But you can simplify the whole thing.
So the last bit before we wrap up. So this one's you kind of touched on some of these. So let me just wrap these ones up quickly. I can't switch off. Even at home, I'm thinking about what's going wrong at work. If I step away for even a day, things slow down or just stop. So I end up not taking time off. I'm tired but there's no option to slow down because too many people depend on this business. That's not business in that's pressure that
Yeah,
business owners are feeling.
yeah. So I get it's pressure, but what's the problem? What creates that? You are the magic. You are the business.
Mm.
Everything revolves around you.
Mm-hmm.
And to have a business takes responsibility. So I think it's learning how to manage that responsibility, and you have to learn how to create leverage. Many business owners stay stuck in their business because they don't create leverage. They don't build a team. They don't create an effective team. They don't. It's where we started right in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust my team.
Yeah.
But go back to it. What are your processes? Are you clear on your processes? What's your context? Are you clear on the behaviors, the values, how you expect people to operate it? Do you have clear context? Do you have clear processes? Do you have, are you clear in driving accountability? Are you clear on the agreements?
Mm.
You know, I am responsible for everyone in my business. I'm clear on that.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is the more I focus on setting up processes, the more I focus on teaching and training my team, the less I have to do in certain areas, the more I can focus in my area of expertise. 3 years ago, I was very involved in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've spent 3 years doing a lot of training, a lot of teaching, a lot of equipping. You run marketing. And yes, we meet and we talk about what's happening, but I don't get involved, which means I've created space for myself to be able to go do other stuff, to be able to do the stuff that I am going to add more value to the business in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's I mean that's why I teach this, and it's not here. It's Get Moving to Greatness. My third book.
Sold out.
It talks about that.
Mm.
It's exactly that. I go into a business and I help business owners who feel like they are the magic and nothing's going to change, and unless they make it change and they hold all the responsibility. What I do is go into a business and help them create all those pillars and implement that stuff so that over a period of 12, 18 months, they can start creating much higher levels of accountability, creating much higher levels of clarity on where people are going, why people are there, what they should be doing, much higher levels of accountability, and then really free up their business. Because, in that book on the front cover, it says, it's like rowing through peanut butter. Sometimes our businesses feel like, can you imagine rowing through peanut butter?
I cannot.
You are working damn hard. You cannot.
No.
It's going. If you fall out, you're gonna frigging go down like sinking sand.
Yeah.
And that's how businesses feel. And sadly, way too many business owners stay stuck in that, not for too long, forever.
Do you think it becomes normal? It becomes that's just the way business is.
Well, I think no, I think people know that there's a different way. They just don't really know how to get out of it. They don't know how to get out of it. You know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
They know because they see other people that seem to have create this sort of elusive business where everything seems to be working and their teams are working and they have free time and making money. But I don't know. I think 90 to 95% business owners stay stuck. It doesn't happen unless you make it happen. And unless you are in the business and driving. So that's what we do. And that's what Get Moving to Greatness is all about. That's what the greatness operating system is all about. We help business owners, we help senior management teams create a shift so that they are no longer the magic. So you start creating flow in your business. Part of it is done from the work that comes out of the work from a guy called Gino Wickman and called Traction. He says, all too often, business owners feel like they are stuck in the mud and their foot's flat on the accelerator and the wheels are spinning and there's mud and cuck and shit and everything flying all over the place and we don't seem to be moving, you know, and that's what I get out of that. But you've got to create what he calls traction. You got to create traction. And traction, when you're stuck in the mud, you have to go and you have to stop. You have to go and create some, you go get logs and sticks and all that sort of stuff, and you start feeding it under the wheels, and you have to, you start systemizing and you start creating processes. You start creating clarity on where you're going, and you get everybody on the team on board, all doing the same stuff. And over a little bit of time, the wheels start connecting and you start getting traction and the car starts moving forward, and then it starts accelerating, and then you out of the mud and moving forward, but you know where you're moving to. And that's really the process that I largely help businesses work in. And there's huge various aspects of that. One is you got to create what we call context. You got to create the right environment so that you are attracting and keeping the right people who are behaving in the right way. Then you got to build processes. Then you create vision and you know, brightness of future for everyone in the team. A lot of times in business, people don't really know where they're going. They're living from month to month, quarter to quarter, maybe year to year. But where are you going? Where's your business going to be in the next 10 years, in the next 5 years? Why are you building it? What do you want to get out of it? What are you structuring it for? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you create that clarity, you can create clarity for your team. And that starts solving that problem. And over a period of time, you start realizing that you can get what you want out of your business. Because otherwise you just feel stuck in that peanut butter. And that's a hard place for business owners to be. How do I know that? I've been there. I've been there in my businesses. I've been there before. And how did I get up? By applying what we teach.
Any final thoughts?
Yeah, business is a tough place. A lot of people, you know, get into business, think next year, oh, I'm going to be a multimillionaire. Face reality. Yeah, business is a tough place, but man, it's worth it. It's just it's such a worthwhile game if you're playing the worthwhile game. And if you're growing and preparing yourself for the growth and working on you, because you've got to be tough. The bigger the game of business you want to play, the bigger the little voice you have to get over, the tougher the being you have to be. And you got to be helping your team to become bigger, better, bolder, tougher, more courageous. And there's the great thing is it's very simple. It's not easy, but it's very simple when you create the simplicity and get rid of all the fluff and the noise and everything around it.
What stands out for me around all of these is how normal they sound. Not extreme, not dramatic, just normal.
Yeah.
And that's probably the problem. See you guys next week.